On New Year's Day 1992, Walter Isaacson published his biography of Henry Kissinger. And for years afterwards, Henry Kissinger refused to speak with him. So what did Walter Isaacson say that pissed off Henry Kissinger so much? Well, that's what I'm going to tell you in this video. Henry Kissinger grew up as a Jew in Weimar, Germany, where they didn't really like Jews so much. He was like, there was one time he wanted to go to a soccer game, and his dad was like, no, you can't go there because you're Jewish, and he went anyways, and he got the crap beaten out of him. Kissinger's mom kind of saw where things were going in Germany, so she pulled her family out of there and moved them to New York. And Henry Kissinger was like, oh man, I love America because it's a country where I don't have to look away when I'm walking down the street. I don't have to cross the street to avoid people. I don't have to, be subservient to them. I can just be myself. Kissinger always said that his childhood didn't leave a lasting imprint on him psychologically, which is the most obvious sign that his childhood did leave a lasting imprint on him psychologically. And when you read Walter Isaacson's biography, you get the sense that Kissinger was like one of the most insecure people ever, right? Like, for example, when one of his pet reporters who would travel around on his airplane with him would write a story about him saying anything negative about Kissinger, Kissinger would sit him down and just talk to him and try and get the reporter to understand why he was doing what he was doing. That also might explain why Kissinger was always allying himself with super powerful people like Fritz Kramer in the army and Nelson Rockefeller and Richard Nixon, because he felt like he needed somebody to protect him. It also could explain why Kissinger was so obsessed with power. One of his famous quotes is, "Power is the ultimate aphrodisiac," and he had all these Machiavellian schemes to make himself more important and to kind of swerve around his enemies and outmaneuver them, and maybe that's why. Kissinger is probably most famous for the bombing of Cambodia during the Vietnam War. The Viet Cong was stashing a bunch of their stuff in Cambodia. They were doing a bunch of stuff in Cambodia. And Henry Kissinger was like, well, let's bomb them. And the problem is, Cambodia was a neutral country. They weren't involved in the war. It was technically a war crime to attack them. And it probably didn't really help the war efforts that much. But Henry Kissinger was like, yeah, fuck it, we're going to do it anyways. And he did the exact same thing to advance his own career. So, for example, when he was talking to Richard Nixon, he would always kiss his ass, because he was like, oh, Nixon's so insecure, and the way to his heart is to, tell him what a great job he's doing. And he was really afraid when all the Watergate tapes got leaked and all of Nixon's private recordings, because he was like, oh man, the whole country is going to hear me kissing up to Richard Nixon. He was a master at telling people exactly what they wanted to hear. When he went to cocktail parties with his liberal friends, he would be like, yeah, we're doing everything we can to end the war. And when he had lunch with his conservative friends, he would be like, we're gonna crush the Viet Cong and we're gonna protect America's honor and reputation. People eventually realized what he was doing and stopped trusting him, but they still had to work with him because he had such a powerful reputation and he had, demonstrated his value so many times they couldn't get rid of him. These sorts of Machiavellian schemes are okay if they're in service of some higher moral purpose, right? Like if you're defending the world's security or you're, preventing nuclear weapons from going off, then, it's probably okay to manipulate people a little bit. And so, once somebody asked Henry Kissinger, what's the higher moral purpose of all your Machiavellian schemes? And he was like, basically, there isn't one. There actually was a moral principle that Henry Kissinger was trying to maximize. Maybe not in his personal life. Maybe in his personal life all he cared about was power and money and, getting to hang out with celebrity women and actresses. But in terms of geopolitics, he was trying to build a world order. In his academic writings, he's always talking about how hard it is to deal with revolutionary countries, right? Like if countries, doing this revolutionary thing to have, justice, then you can't really do diplomacy with it. It's really hard. His view is that if you have to choose between justice and order, you should pick order. People should be willing to put up with a certain amount of bad things happening in the world in order for the world to work. He said that if I had to choose between order and injustice on one hand and justice and disorder on the other hand, I would pick injustice and order. That's the approach that Henry Kissinger took to world peace. Ronald Reagan, when he was president, he was like, oh, the Soviets are the evil empire and we hate them and they're our enemies. Kissinger was like, yeah, we can work with the Soviets. We don't have to like them, but they're powerful and we don't want to go to war with them, so let's try and establish a relationship with them where we kind of trust each other and we don't blow each other up. Kissinger admires European statesmen of the past, like Bismarck, who, they just wanted to make a peace, right? They were interested in creating a balance of power so that countries wouldn't go to war. Kissinger did the exact same thing by visiting China. His attitude was, the Soviets will respect us more if they feel like they have to compete for our attention, and so he established a relationship with China. There's the famous picture of Nixon hanging out with Chairman Mao, and a large part of that was because of Henry Kissinger, right? He was like, we need an ally so that we show the Soviets, hey, we can kick your ass, so you have to respect us. Now, that doesn't really sit right with most Americans, which is one of the big reasons why Kissinger wasn't invited to be Secretary of State for Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan didn't like Henry Kissinger saying, like, oh, we should accept the Soviets the way they are, because that's just not America's style. America is a super ideological country, right? Like, we love it when countries in other parts of the world become democracies, and when they grow economically, and when they, take women's rights more seriously, or minority rights more seriously, or human rights in general more seriously. And Henry Kissinger's point is that that stuff is nice, but it's kind of a luxury, right? Like, the most important thing is that nobody attacks us. When he was growing up, he saw ideology at its worst. He saw the country that he grew up in drive itself crazy and, basically destroy itself in service of this, concocted idea of what was right and wrong. Kissinger's afraid that if America tries to export its morality to the rest of the world, then there could be some sort of disaster. Like, think about the war in Iraq, and we were like, oh, we're going to go into Iraq, and we're going to topple Saddam Hussein, and we're going to build a democracy here, and it's going to be great. Women are going to have rights, and there's going to be education, people are going to get to vote. And that's not what happened, right? It turns out, like, Iraq, just democracy didn't work, and the policies that America tried to put in place led to the creation of ISIS. People love to shit on Kissinger, and to a certain extent, he deserves it. But, on the other hand, it's possible that if it weren't for him, the world would have gone up in nuclear Armageddon. Today, people kind of take it for granted that mutually assured destruction means nuclear war is impossible, and that the US was always going to win the Cold War because we had a better economic system. But you could have very easily imagined a world where the Cold War turned hot, and it took skilled diplomats like Henry Kissinger to prevent that. So thanks for checking out Theo's Book Club. If you're new around here, my name's Theo. I make short videos like this one going over the big ideas in the books that I read so that you can learn the stuff I learned and so you can decide, do I want to read these books for myself? If you like this video, do me a quick favor, hit the like button right down there. That tells YouTube, hey, this is a good video and we should show it to more people. If you want more of these book review videos to pop up in your feed, then you can hit this subscribe button right here. And you can also, if you want to see another book review video I did about one of Walter Isaacson's biographies, you can check out the video I made about his Elon Musk biography, which is going to be right over here. And until next time, be a little bit more realistic and a little bit less vain, and have a great day.